Today I'm going to show you how to make a tassel and then make a necklace to go along with it. We will be using the Autumn Tones treasure bag. However, if you do not have the treasure bag, don't fret. You can still do this. This is a techniques video. You can use any beads that you have to do this with. You can also get some of these little cone beads on my website if you'd like. I do have some of those left. Or you can use any cone bead that you have in your stash. So don't feel left out. This is what the focal area looks like. I'm going to get you in closer so you can see how pretty the tassel is. And then I'm going to mess up the necklace here. And I'm going to show you the whole thing here. Let me back off. I had it laid out pretty, but now I messed it up. But there. That's the entire necklace. Now, that's the entire necklace. And we'll make this really simple pair of earrings to go with it. And, like I said, just grab anything that's similar if you don't have the treasure bag, and let's make something pretty. Let's get started. Okay, for this project today, we're going to be using things from the Autumn Tones treasure bag. However, this is a techniques video. As I always say, if you do not have the treasure bag, you can find things that are similar in your own stash or even completely different. Use the same techniques and come up with something very pretty. So, don't feel left out. Now, from the treasure bag, we're going to be using some of the chain that came in the bag. You can use whatever chain you'd like. We are going to be using the 8x5 or 8x6 rondelles that are in the treasure bag. I think this is called wheat or something like that, but we're going to be using those. Then we're going to be using the golden 10mm round polygon beads, 2 of them. You have 2 golden. We'll be using those. Then we will be using the 1 cone bead we have left over. If you've been doing the other tutorials, you'll have 1 left. We're going to use one of the clasps that are in the treasure bag. We're going to be using the 8x4 bicones, the dark red ones that are in the treasure bag. If you do not have dark red, use the light red. It's fine. We are going to be using, with that, the 5 drawbench drops. So these are drawbench beads, glass beads that have a little bit of gold on them and they're drop shape. You'll be using those in the sienna tone. Unless you have the light red, then you will be using them in the red. So you can still do this, matches beautifully. If you happen to get the light red bicones, you can use the red drawbench beads. So either way, they work out beautifully together. So we'll use all 5 of these beads that came in the treasure bag. Then we're going to be using 8O seed beads in 2 colors. So I've got antique bronze and I've got starlight. And these are Tohos, of course. Then we're going to be using a combination of jump rings. So I've got a whole bunch. You need about 24, I think, maybe a little bit more. Just have out like 30 to make sure. This is a 4mm round jump ring, and it's in the antique bronze tone. And then I have 2 8mm round jump rings in the antique bronze tone, and I have 2 10mm jump rings in the antique bronze tone. You are adding this to the treasure bag. It's not in there, but you just need a combination of sizes of jump rings for this particular design. Then if you want to make the earrings, you're going to need 2 ear wires. You're going to need quite a few head pins. I have these short head pins. I will also use 1 long head pin. If you're just using all long head pins, that's fine too. And then you're going to need a couple of eye pins for the earrings. We're also going to be using some 20 gauge wire. I am using artistic wire. This is tarnish resistant brass, and we will be using that. So I think that's everything, and let's go ahead and get started with this project. Okay, we're going to start by making the little dangles for the tassel. Now I have cut 3 pieces of chain 12 links long, so I just counted out 12 links and then separated the 13th one and took it off and then did it 2 more times. Then the same with the shorter links, we're going to do 8, separate the 9th, take it off the chain, and then do 8 more and 8 more. Now, if you want your dangles to be all the same length, then just do them all, 6 of them, 12 links. But I want mine to be different lengths, so I have done this to where I have 2 different lengths. Then you can set those aside for a second once you have separated your links. And if you have a different chain than I do, these are about 1 inch long, I believe. 1 1/4 inches. So just make your links about 1 1/4 inches long, and then the shorter ones are about 3/4 inches. So that's how you'll measure that if you have different chain than I have, because the links, of course, will measure differently. Then we're going to make little components to go at the bottom of those chains. So I have 6 of my bicones, and I have some of the gold color of my 8/0 seed beads. And I'm just going to grab an 8/0 seed bead, and then I'm going to put on a bicone and then an 8/0 seed bead onto this head pin. I'm going to bring this in closer, and I'm going to grab my flat nose pliers, and just above that 8/0 seed bead, I'm going to place my pliers just a little bit above it, and then I'm going to bend that over like this. Then I'm going to cut this down just a little bit. So if you have a long head pin, you'll have to cut more, of course, but you want about 3/8 of an inch here. So we're just going to go right about there. I'm going to cut that off, and then I'm going to grab my round nose pliers, and I'm going to go to the very end of this wire here, right at the very end, get it flush with my pliers. I'm going just a little ways down because this, I know, on my plier will make a perfect little loop for me. So you'll have to judge on your pliers, and then just start to turn until you can't turn anymore. Reposition your wrist by just pushing it forward, and then start to roll some more. Roll until it's all the way over, like this. And you can see it's still open a little bit. So I take the front of my pliers and just close it with the front, the narrow end of the pliers. And that is how you will make your components. Go ahead and make 6 of those, and we'll be back. Okay, so now I have my 6 components, and I'm just going to open them and put them on the end of all 6 chains that we cut. So I will just grab a hold of one of these. Let's get you in closer. And I'm just going to open it. I'm going to try to hold on to that seed bead a little bit, find which side opens, and just open that loop that we've made. The seed bead wants to slide around, so it's kind of a pain, but just kind of hold it in place and then drop your chain on the end like this, and then close it. Just lift it out, twisting, and then twist it back. And that's how you will put all of your ends on all the pieces that we cut. So go ahead and put all of your components on your chain, and we'll be back. Okay, so now I have put all of my beads on the end of my chains. And now you're going to need 3 of your small jump rings, and you're going to grab, it's like a 4mm jump ring. You're going to grab the jump ring on the side where it opens. So it opens right here. I placed one plier here. I'm going to place another plier on the other side of that opening and just twist it open like this. And then I'm going to drop the long chain on. Let me get into camera here. And then I'm going to drop the short chain on, and I'm going to close it. Just like that. And you're going to do that with all 3 sets. So go ahead and put a jump ring on these 2, and we will be back. Okay, so now I have just slid my dangles onto a head pin just to keep it straight. And you can see I have it arranged through the jump rings so that the short ones are in front and the long ones are in back. This will just keep it kind of straightened up because the jump rings blend in with the chain and it just makes it hard to distinguish. And this way I can just hold this aside and have it ready when I need them. So now what we're going to do is I have cut about 4 inches, let me see. Yep, about 4 inches of 20 gauge wire. And now we're going to make a loop to slide these on. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go about 1.5 inches down. Yeah, about 1.5 inches down right here on my wire. I'm going to grab my round nose pliers. You don't want to make this loop huge, but you don't want to make it really small either. So I'm going to go not quite halfway. So I'm still towards the narrow side, but pretty much to the middle so that my loop isn't tiny, but it isn't huge either. And I'm going to bend that over the top. So the extra wire just bending over the top of my pliers, which I am holding parallel to my bead pad. Then I am just going to straighten up my wrist so now that my pliers are vertical. And I'm just going to bring my wires around, just like this. So I just wrapped them around and I'm just leaving this open like this. So now what I can do is I can grab this loop, and actually I'm going to make that just a little smaller so I can just do that. I'm going to grab this loop and I'm going to open it like that. And now I am going to take my head pin here and I'm going to grab a hold of these in the order that I put them on the head pin and just slide through the jump ring like this and then bring it down into the loop. Making sure that my long ones go to one side and my short ones go to the other side as I do this. So I'm going to pick up my next one and put this on here and see how I need to turn it around and drop it down. So you can see that I have my long ones towards the back and my short ones towards the front. They're not going to be perfect. They're going to kind of jumble in each other, but if you put them on there properly, it should help. And then we're going to do the last one. Slide it on through the jump ring, put it on, let it drop onto the loop. Look at your arrangement, see if you like your arrangement. If you don't, you can change it at this point. Kind of move it around a little bit. And then you're going to grab your round nose pliers, or chain nose actually is what I'm going to use. And I'm going to grab onto this loop. And I'm just going to straighten up. So I'm bringing this wire back a little bit, straighten it up a little bit, hold on to it. I'm going to bring this wire down so it's parallel to my pliers. Just like that. I can bend this one up a little just so you have a nice joint there. And then you're going to grab your chain nose or flat nose or whatever you have and wrap around twice the extra piece of wire right around the neck of that loop there. Just like that. Then we are going to cut this little tiny piece off here. And then I'm going to grab my chain nose pliers and tuck the little extra tail down. And this is what you should have. Just like that. Let me back off a little so you can see what that looks like. Let me put it down so you can see it. Just like that. Now I'm going to, I probably cut a little bit more wire than I need, but I always like to make sure. If you want to cut a shorter 3.5 inches or something like that, then you can do that too. But I like to make sure I have enough to wrap with. Now I'm just sliding my cone bead right over this thing that we've made here. Just slide it right over. Your loop should go right in. And then we're going to pick up one of our polygon beads. I'm going to use the gold color polygon and put it on to my wire. And then I'm going to grab my round nose pliers. I'm going to place it just a little ways down my pliers. Again, I don't want a tiny loop, but I don't want a huge one either. And where you place it is how big your loop is going to be. And then I'm just going to bend that over the plier. The wire is going away from me over the top of the plier. Then I'm going to turn the plier by turning my wrist, and now my plier, instead of being parallel to the bead mat, is vertical. I'm going to bring this wire over the top. And as I do this, I'm going to turn my wrist again parallel and bring that wire underneath the loop I just created. So you have this now. Now we're going to grab a hold of our chain nose or our flat nose pliers, and we want to arrange this wire so that it is the same angle as the plier. So it's parallel to the plier. I'm going to switch hands because I wrap better with my right hand. So I'm still holding it to where the wire is parallel to the pliers, just like this. And now I am going to grab my flat nose pliers, and I'm going to start to turn this wire around the neck of the wire that the bead is on. And I'm going to turn it until the bead has cinched down pretty tightly, and I'm just going to kind of go over the top of that bead a little bit. Just like that. And this is what we have. And now I'm going to grab my pliers, and I'm going to snip that off as close as I can. Not my pliers, my you know, the cutters, those things that chop stuff. And then we are going to very gently, because this bead is glass, we're going to tuck this little end in the best we can. Oops, without distorting your whole wrap here. Just kind of tuck it under. There we go. And if you distort it a little bit, you can gently rearrange it, but be careful with that glass bead there. And I'll rearrange this a little bit more, just very gently. Normally I don't have to do that, but I squeezed it a little too tight and distorted it a little. So just tuck that end in gently so that you don't have that issue. And then you can straighten out your loop on the top with your chain nose pliers, make it all look nice. And this is what you should have. Now let me wipe my crystal off because I've got my oils from my hands all over it, and I messed it up again. I'm just gonna mess this up, guys, so you know, just mess it up. There. That is what you should have. It's a nice little dangle like this. Tassel, I guess I should call it. Just like that, and we're going to set that aside. Now I have cut 4 3-inch pieces of wire, and we're going to make 2 components with a combination of beads, and then 2 other components with a combination of beads, and I'll show you what I mean. So first we're going to start with 2 of our draw bench drops and a rondelle, and 2 gold seed beads and 2 bronze seed beads. You can use whatever color seed beads you want. You don't even have to put them on there, but I find that they protect the beads as I'm doing the wire, as I'm working the wire. They protect the beads a lot, so I like to have them on there. So I've got a 3-inch piece of wire, and I'm going to flush cut this end here because it is not. Cut it with the flat side of your plier and it'll flush cut it like this. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to grab my flat nose pliers and about 3/8 of an inch down, maybe a little bit more because I want kind of a big loop. So about 2 lengths of my flat nose plier, I'm just going to bend this down like this. And then I'm going to make another loop like we did earlier. But I'm going to go a little bit further down on my plier because I want this to be a fairly decent sized loop. So I just turn until I can't turn anymore, reposition my wrist, and continue to turn. So you can just turn over your plier basically. And this is what you should have. Now, you can see that my loop is just a little bit open. So I'm going to grab it and I am going to lift it, twisting it, push it towards the neck of the wire, and just bring it back down. And you can kind of shimmy that around until you get that closed pretty tightly, just like that. Now we want to put onto this, I'm going to put on a bronze seed bead. I'm mixing the bronze and gold because I only had gold wire. I didn't have any bronze. And the bronze and gold looks pretty good together. So I'm bringing out both bronze and gold elements as I do this. That's why I have two colors of seed beads. So I've got my bronze seed bead. And then I'm going to put on my drop, the fat side towards my loop here. And then I'm going to put on a gold seed bead and a rondelle, and then a gold seed bead, and then my drop. Now I'm doing the narrow side towards my beads, and then another bronze seed bead, just like this. And that's the first component we're going to make, and we're going to make two of these. So now I'm going to grab right above that last seed bead, and I'm going to bend this over. And then I'm going to hold it in my hand, that seed bead down there, like this, so I can control it. And again, I'm going to cut about 2 lengths of my flat nose pliers. So here, here, about here. So I will cut here. They're flying, even though I'm trying to guard them. It's okay, guys. I have glasses on. Don't worry. And then poke my eye out. And then I'm going to, that's, I think, just even a little long. Let me see. No, maybe not. Yeah, maybe. I might trim that just a tiny bit. I'll get too big of a loop here. And then again, I'm going to place my plier basically where I did before. Start to turn until I can't turn anymore. Bring my wrist forward and turn some more. If you need to, you can release, go back in with the small end of your plier and close it. And that's what your loop should look like. Then, of course, you can close that loop tightly by twisting it and shimmying it. And then I'm going to grab both my chain nose and my flat nose pliers, and I'm just going to grab on both loops and make sure they are positioned the same way. So just like this. And straighten out my component because I squashed him. And that's what that looks like. That's one you're going to make, and you will duplicate that. And then we're going to make 2 more with another piece of wire here. And this time we are going to put on 2 gold, 2 bronze, and then we're going to use 2 bicones, and we're going to use 1 of the rondelles. So we're going to make basically the same thing. I'm going to flush cut this end, and then I am going to bend this down the same way I did before. I want basically the same size loops. So about 2 lengths of my flat nose plier, and I'm going to bend that over. And then I'm going to grab my round nose pliers in the same place I've been using. I'm going to place at the end of that wire and just turn as far as I can, reposition and continue to turn, take my plier out and finish. Just like that. Let's get you closer so you can see. And that's what you should have. Now we're going to grab a, let's see, how did I do it before? I want a bronze, a bicone, a gold, a rondelle, a gold seed bead, and a bicone. And some of these bicones, they're so thin, some of them are broken on the ends. You just have to kind of filter those out. And I try to keep them. I don't crush them. I'm as careful with them as I can, but sometimes they get a little bit, they come from the factory that way, I think. Okay, so this is what we've got. We're going to do the same thing we did before. Hold it in your hand like this so that you can control that last seed bead there. Put your flat nose plier just a little bit above that seed bead and bend. And then again, you're going to cut about 3/8 of an inch here, maybe a little bit over. Let's see what I got. It's about right, maybe a tiny bit shorter. And then I am going to make my loop again. So position at the end, turn as far as I can, reposition my wrist, continue to turn, take my plier out, and finish it with the tip. Just like that. Now I can doctor it up by grabbing both of my pairs of pliers and straighten out both of the loops so that they are in the same direction, and make sure I didn't squish my component. This one needs a little bit more repositioning here. Let's see what we got going on. It's just a little funky. There we go. Now, you are going to make another component like this and another component like this, and we'll be back. Okay, so now you should have your 4 components that we just learned how to make. Set those aside. And now I'm going to grab my long head pin. I told you I needed 1 long head pin, and I'm going to make my center dangle here. That will be in between the short part of the necklace and the long part, and that will make more sense as we build this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up an 8/0 seed bead, and there's a couple of reasons why I'm using seed beads first. First of all, these head pins that I have, they're kind of cheap, yucky ones, and they stick out a lot. So I am going to put the seed beads there to kind of help, and then I can kind of trim and file that down a little bit because it's a little sharp. I tried to find a different one. They're all the same. So, and then after I put my 8/0 seed bead on, I'm going to drop my polygon bead on, and then I'm going to put on a bronze seed bead, and then I'm going to drop my last draw bench bead down. Now, like I said earlier, if you have the light colored bicones, go ahead and use the red draw bench beads. Draw bench beads, they'll work perfectly. So you can do the exact same design with everything else the same, just change the color of the draw bench beads. Now we're going to put on 1 more seed bead. I think I'm going to put an 8/0 in gold on top of this. So it'll protect as I'm rolling my wire. It'll protect the tops of the glass beads, and it'll kind of cushion this weirdness on the bottom here, which I will kind of doctor up too. I'll file it a little bit or something because it's kind of pokey. Then I'm going to grab my flat nose pliers just above that bead, just a little bit, and bend it over. And then I'm going to cut this down again to about 3/8 of an inch. Flies no matter what I do. Okay, and then I'm going to roll another loop here, decent size, about there, and roll as far as I can, reposition my wrist, roll some more, take it out, put it in the front, and close it. Just like that. Just like we've been doing all along. And that's our center dangle. And I have oil on my hands, so I will clean these all up. They're not as pretty because of that. And now we're going to make another 6 units, 6 components. So we've got these 4 components here. We've got this 1 component. We've got our tassel made. And now we need to make some small components that we're going to put between chain on the top of the necklace. So what we're going to do is I have about 1.5 inches of wire cut, and I have 6 of them cut. And what we're going to do is, let me flush cut that. And then we are going to do the same thing we've been doing. We're going to bend this guy over, same way as we've been doing. And then we're going to grab our round nose pliers and we're going to make a loop. So put it at the very end of your wire and then begin to roll as far as you can. Bring your hand forward, just flip your wrist forward and continue to roll. Take your plier outside of the loop and just bring the loop in, just like that. Now we are going to close this loop a little bit. So I'm going to lift it and close it. And then I am going to just put on these, a bronze 8/0 and then a bicone. Come here. And a bronze 8/0, and then I'm going to loop this side. And we'll make 6 of these, just like this. I'm going to cut this wire down. And then I am going to make my loop again, just like I've been doing. And straighten it out. If I can find the right stuff here. I'll straighten out this one and this one. Make sure they're the same. And I'll show you a trick. My loop on this side is just a little too big. It's just more than I need. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get you in close, is I'm going to grab the very tip of my flush cutters, and I'm just going to cut off just a couple, like a millimeter of that wire in that loop, just like that. And then I'm going to put my round nose pliers back in there, and I'm just going to bring it around. And then I can move this side over and then bring the side in. And now I have a better loop. And I can close it a little bit tighter than that. And that's a better loop. And this side is a little bit big too, but I will go ahead and doctor that up off camera. But that's just so that you don't have to completely redo your entire loop again. So these ones I'll consider making all of them this size, which is a little bit smaller than the loops I've been making. But as long as my components that match have the same size loops, we'll be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and make 6 components just like this, and we'll be back. So now I have made all 6 of my components with the single bicone on it. And this is what you should have. You should have your tassel, your 6 components with the single bicone. You should have your component with the polygon bead on, with the drop bead on a head pin. And then you should have the 2 units with the bicones and the rondelles here. And then the 2 units with the drop beads and the rondelles. And then you're going to cut 2 pieces of chain that are 10 links long. So I have about 10 links is about an inch, I believe. Yep, right around an inch, maybe a little bit over. So just as long as it's somewhere around there, you need 2 10 links or an inch of chain. And then we're going to go with 9 links. So this will just be slightly shorter than those. And we're going to have 6 pieces of 9 links. 2 with 10 links, 6 of 9 links. And then you're going to need about 24 millimeter jump rings. You're going to need your 2 large jump rings, your 2 10 millimeter and your 2 8 millimeter. And then, of course, I've got 2 heavier gauge 4 millimeter for my clasping. I'm going to push that aside, and I'm going to straighten this all up. I'm going to leave out my 2 long links here and my little jump rings and my 2 big jump rings. I'm just going to move everything back just a little bit, and we're going to start to build this necklace. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the tassel on a big jump ring. So let me grab my flat nose pliers if I can find them. And I'm just going to open this jump ring like this. Just twist it open a little bit. Let's get you in here a little bit. And we're just going to drop this jump ring onto the tassel. And then you are going to grab the drop units here, and you're going to put them onto the big jump ring. So 1 on either side. And this is the units with the drop beads, the drop edge drop beads, just like this. And then we're going to close this jump ring. Maybe. Come here. Okay. So let me back off a little bit so you can see. This is what we have. Then we are going to connect the two longer ones, the 10 link chains. We're going to attach them to either side with small jump rings. So we're going to open a small jump ring, just the way we've been doing it, and we're going to put one length of chain on this jump ring, just like this, drop it on here, and close it. Okay, then you're going to grab your 8mm jump ring and close it tightly. Then you're going to grab a small jump ring and you're going to put it on the other end of the chain. Just makes it hang a little bit better. You can open up the chain and put it directly on your links if you'd like, but this makes it just hang and dangle a little bit nicer. Now I'm putting the 8mm jump ring on to the 4mm jump ring, and I'm going to close that. These jump rings aren't the best either, guys, but I use what I got. There we go. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And as soon as we get the other side all put together exactly the way we did this one, I put this other side together exactly like I put this side together. Now we're going to use the units with the rondelles and the bicones, and we're going to use the other 10mm jump ring. We're going to use 4 of the small 4mm jump rings, and we're going to open them and slide them onto the units we made, and then put them on the large jump ring here. Make sure your large jump ring is shut tight. Yeah, these jump rings, they're just not that great. Okay. And then I'm going to grab another 4mm jump ring, and I'm going to do the same thing with this component. Put it onto the large jump ring. And then I'm going to connect these two units to, let me shut that, to the 8mm jump rings on either side. So we'll grab a small jump ring again, open the jump ring, put it on the 8mm, put it on the unit that we created, and close it. And then do the same thing on the other side. Grab a jump ring, open it, put it on this side, and this is what you should have, just like this. Now we are going to grab the unit that we made on the head pin, and we're going to grab a jump ring, and we're going to attach it to the 10mm jump ring in the center of all this. So right here, put this on, and drop it on here, and close it. And now, this is what we have. Now we're going to work on the top area. So I'm going to move this down so I'm in camera a little bit better. And straighten everything out. Make sure it's hanging the way I want it to. Yeah, it looks okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab one of the little units that we made with the bicones. I'm going to put a jump ring on either side of it, and then attach chain in between. And we're going to do 3 of these units on both sides of the necklace. This is going to make an 18-inch necklace. Well, I'm not counting any of this down here in the length of my necklace. You have to count from here, and I will show you on the beadboard when we're finished. But this area here is what is going to actually make the length that goes around your neck, not this down here. So I'll show you how to measure that. So we're going to grab a jump ring, put it on the 8mm round, or 8mm jump ring, excuse me, and then we're going to close the 4mm jump ring. Then I'm going to move this down, and I'm going to grab one of my links that are 9 links long, one of my pieces of chain that's 9 links long, and I'm going to put a jump ring on either side, connecting this chain to this component here, and then I'll connect the other side to another component with a jump ring. Like this. Close my jump ring. And then I'll grab another another unit here and a jump ring. Make sure my unit isn't all crooked and weird. And I will open another jump ring and put this on. Oops, come here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to continue repeating this. So we're going to put a jump ring and another piece of chain, and then another unit, and then another piece of chain, and then we'll grab one of our heavier jump rings and a clasp and put it on. So that's how that will finish up. So go ahead and put on another piece of chain and a component, then another piece of chain and your clasp, and we will be back. Do the other side exactly the same way also. That way when we come back, we'll have a completed necklace. So the same thing, just repeat it on this side, and we'll be back. Okay, so now you can see that I have finished my ends, and there's what the front looks like. It's really, really, really pretty. And it hangs really nice on the neck. But that all depends on how your length fits on your neck. If you want this to be spread out and up high on your neck so that this can dangle up higher on your chest, then you need to make this area shorter. If you want it to be longer, then of course you'll make this area with your single components and your chain longer. You can do that by making more units, or you can just make your chain longer in between each one. Now I'm going to show you on my beadboard how you're going to measure this to get your accurate length. So you're going to put the top piece, not the tassel, but the top piece where the dangle with the head pin is on the 0, and then you will measure from side to side on this outer divot on your beadboard from 9 to 9. That makes an 18-inch necklace, because of course 0 to 9 is 9 inches, 0 to 9 is 9 inches, and now I have an 18-inch necklace. You measure from this portion because it is the portion closest to your neck, and it is the length that you need from here up to know so that you can get a proper fitting necklace. If you try to measure it from here, it's just not going to work. That's not the area you need to measure. You need to measure the area that's actually around your neck. So that's how you do that. So you can measure it on your beadboard from this component area here and figure out exactly how long you want your necklace. Of course, you can always adjust it. If you put it on and it's too long, then just get rid of one of these segments. If it's too short, add another segment, and you should be able to adjust that quite well. This should fit very well a medium-sized person. If you're making it for a larger person, 20 inches around the neck generally works pretty well, and a very small person, 16 inches around the neck works really well. Now let me lay this out really pretty and give you one more shot at it, and maybe we'll make a pair of earrings real quick. I've decided to make a really simple dangle. This is what it looks like, And this is what you're going to need. You're going to need an eye pin, a head pin, a jump ring, an ear wire, one of your little bicone beads, or actually double all of this, of course, and then one of the rondelles that we've been using, and we're going to use 4 of the gold color seed beads, 8 That isn't gold, like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the head pin, and we're going to drop an 8 seed bead on it, the rondelle on it, and an 8 seed bead. And then we're going to bend this over the top of that seed bead, just a little bit above it, and bend it over. And I have a short jump ring, so I don't have to trim this, but if you have a longer, or not jump ring, but head pin, if you have a longer one, trim that down, and then again, just make a component just like we've been making all along. Spin that little loop like that. And then we're going to grab an eye pin, and we're going to drop an 8 seed bead, a bicone crystal, an 8 seed bead, and again we're going to bend this just a little bit above that 8 seed bead, bend it over, trim it down a little bit, this is a little bit longer pin, and then again make your loop. Just like that. And then you're going to, I'm using one of my heavier gauge 4mm jump rings just because they were handy. So I'm going to open a 4mm jump ring. Oops, missed that opening. There we go. And then I'm going to put both components on here and close it. And then I'm going to open my jump ring, or not my jump ring. Everything's a jump ring or not a jump ring, or I don't know. I'm opening the ear wire. You can see on the side that it opens. Just twist it open just like you do your jump ring. And drop the bicone unit on there and close it the same way you opened it. And voila, you have a very, very simple, delicate little pair of earrings. And I'm going to set out the whole set, clean up my bead mat, and show you what we ended up with. And we'll call it good. And this is what your set looks like. It turned out really pretty, and it looks really nice on the neck. So it's a really simple design. You can do this with any beads that you have. Now you know basically what components and what size the components need to be, and you can make them with any beads you have. You can also just make it and hang a pendant here. You don't have to, if you don't have any more cone beads, you can just hang a pendant here and have the same basic style. So, or you could just make some beads and dangle them off of the jump ring. You can do a lot of things to modify this now that you basically know how to put it together and what size the units have to be and so on and so forth. You can just play with it and make all kinds of necklaces fairly quickly, fairly simply, and have lots of Christmas gifts. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.